Welcome to Not What I Thought. I'm Erica.
I'm Yolanda.
And I'm Becca. We're therapists, entrepreneurs, and perfectly imperfect humans.
We first met during a business owner retreat where we became fast friends because we're not afraid to be real and ask the hard questions about life. What we thought it would be like, how messy it actually is, and the courage it takes to create the life we want.
We continue to build our friendship and personal growth through our own retreats. We find the deepest connection in sharing our struggles and finding what we have in common rather than what divides us.
We're breaking down hard topics on our podcast and together have conversations about what it takes to find real talk, real support, and real rest for professional women. We're glad you're here. Join us on your favorite podcast platform.
So hello, everyone. Welcome back to Not What I Thought. Today, we're so excited to have Gina on with us, and she is going to share a really good story with us. So Gina, let's jump right into it.
I'm so excited to be here on your podcast, Not What You Thought, not what I thought. So I really resonated with your message that you have around this podcast. And I, growing up, I was born in 1971. So I think we're called Gen X, which I think is an amazing generation. But there still was, even though things had progressed, I think there was still a pressure when I was growing up, not so much from my family, because I grew up, my grandparents actually raised me. My mother had me very, very young. So my grandparents actually took on the role of bringing me up. And my mother was actually like the person you'd go and visit on school holidays. So a bit of a flip. So I was very aware of what it meant to have children when they were unexpected, I suppose. So I didn't necessarily have pressure from my family, but growing up, you get to a certain age and there's that pressure to have children. Why aren't you married? When are you going to have children? Especially you reach that, those mid-20s, it really kicks in. And I wasn't married, but I had been in long-term relationships. And I must say the long-term relationships I wouldn't call a stable upbringing for a child. And I was very aware of that. I was also, in a way, fortunate I didn't have that deep urge that some women do have to have a child. I understand and acknowledge that for some women it is a real desire. I didn't have that. And I made a conscious choice not to have children. And this was because I didn't want to be a solo mum. I know that's sometimes totally out of your control. Life happens. But it was a conscious decision I made. And I think a lot of my peer group thought that was a bit weird. It's like, especially if your relationship is a little bit rocky, sometimes people seem to think a child's going to fix it.
Yeah.
As
and
a
I was like,
I've heard that story a lot.
Yeah.
It doesn't really ever seem to be true.
no, and I couldn't see the logic in that. I really couldn't. And all I thought was, okay, yeah, we go and do this. And then who's left picking up the pieces? Me. And like I said, with the backstory of my own upbringing, I didn't want that for my child. So yeah, I made a conscious choice, and I did get, and I felt pressured from my friends. And then as a woman, it's like, is there something wrong with you? If you haven't had a child, you're not a complete woman. I'm not saying all society thinks that, but there is that pressure.
I have a couple of questions for you, Gina. You mentioned your upbringing, and I wonder if anywhere in there you felt like, did your family give you any messages that like you were inconvenient or that like it was a burden to raise you, or it's more just you had an awareness that it doesn't have to be this way?
Definitely they didn't make me feel like that. I was very lucky that my grandparents were very open about me. They were open about how I came to being. Same with my mother. I knew I was an illegitimate child. I knew of my father. He wasn't in the picture. My grandmother especially, I was a blessing. She didn't want she never wanted, originally there was the plan to adopt me out, and she couldn't picture looking in everybody's pram for me.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I was very much
Oh,
wanted in that sense.
yeah, that's
And it has worked. My mother, my birth mother, and I have an amazing relationship. Um, so I was very lucky in that way. I always said I had two mums,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of people didn't get that. So, but I was like you, going back to your question, I was very aware of, I suppose, I was very aware of an adult situation
Mm-hmm.
at an early age,
Yeah.
and um, very conscious of that. Even through college, there was still, teen pregnancies, um,
Mm-hmm.
and that happens. But I was just, I was scared of getting pregnant. I was utterly terrified of getting pregnant. So I did everything in my power not to get pregnant. It was just, it wasn't. I suppose, yeah, in that sense, I scared myself into not having children initially. I hope that answers, yeah.
yeah. And I also wondered if there was a time when, in adulthood, if you thought like, well, maybe I would want to have kids if I was married, or maybe I would want to have kids if I was in the right relationship. You sort of always knew, I don't think motherhood's for me.
It's a really good question. My, not the partner I'm with now, and I was single 10 years before I met him, but the one before, we were together 8 years, and he really wanted kids. He was younger than me, but he's got kids now, and he's a great dad, and he even had a name picked out. So he was very paternal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I just couldn't let that guard down. I still had that deep gut feeling that it wasn't right. Um, so yes, the thought did go through my head when I was in a stable relationship that was okay. Ironically, he did have an affair. He did leave me. Um, and it all went quite pear-shaped. So yeah, maybe the universe was telling me the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
I love even in that though, being with a stable partner who really wanted to be a parent, that you still knew this like thing inside of you. It was like, mm, not for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you have to really, I think a lot of people, this is just my personal opinion. So I hope your listeners don't take offense. A lot of people who consciously make the choice not to have children really think about that choice.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if for some people, not all, the choice to have children is considered quite the same because, like you said, it's societal norms. It's what you do. You follow this pattern. Um, so I think now, because I'm 54 now, I do have moments going, oh, should I have had children? Because now I would have been enjoying grandchildren possibly. I think grandchildren are a really neat idea. I like the idea of grandchildren. But,
Yeah.
there's actually no guarantee I would have had a relationship with my child. There's a lot of parents and children in adulthood that don't actually have healthy relationships or a relationship. So you're still not guaranteed to have that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that that is a really interesting point that well, not only do we as women not necessarily many of us kind of think through this kind of the fact that it is a choice point to have a child or not to have a child, and maybe that doesn't fit for me. But I do think that I'll just speak for myself. I never really the choice to have a child. I never really oh, I might or might not have a relationship with my child. And I think that's a really part of the premise of this podcast is so that we can have open conversations about things that we don't necessarily give voice to. And so I really appreciate you coming on and giving voice to, yeah, this is not a choice. This is not something that all of us as women choose. I can choose to be childless, and there's nothing wrong or bad or broken, just as another woman might choose to have a child. There's so many to navigate through the world and to live our lives.
Yeah, 100.
Yeah, I really appreciate the way that you worded that, Gina, about like people who make this choice have thought about it deeply. Um, and it's not that I would have questioned that. I just don't think I've ever heard it said actually that way. And like, oh yeah, I think that this is like bringing something more clearly to my awareness that like we should not question people who have chosen not to have children, as if perhaps you forgot.
Maybe you should wake up
today. Perhaps you didn't know that this was a thing that many people do. Have you thought about it? Like, oh my goodness.
So funny. As women, we have like, it's not like we have a whole logistical thing to think about. Like if you choose not to have a child, yet you're still, I hope you won't mind me saying this, sexually active. You've got to think of those choices. There's the whole, not just the emotional choice, but there's the logistical choice behind it as well. So there's lots of layers to it, and and financially, there's so many. There's the practical side, and then there's the emotional side. And you're so right with what you just said there, that it's like, why have you not thought about it? Well, of course I've thought about it, and I've thought deeply, and I think then even to question that is quite rude in a way, because there's a lot of women out there too that have wanted to have children and haven't been able to. So I think even to enter that conversation is pretty prickly. It's quite sensitive.
Well, yeah, I mean, to what I think I'd like to highlight what you're saying. Like, when a woman does not have a child, whether that is by choice or by other reasons, to have unsolicited conversation with that person about their childlessness is none of people's business.
100%. My God, yes.
Mhm.
And that I suppose that's what I started to get a little bit annoyed about. Probably in my 30s is where it really dug in, because that's when people are really pressuring you.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
TikTok.
TikTok is yeah.
How my God, why come up with a new saying, not just TikTok.
Yeah, Gina, actually, I was curious some of your thoughts about that, getting those questions. I actually went through infertility. I did end up having children. But those questions I thought were going to drive me insane. I was just going to start punching people in the face because, they were invasive, really, in a lot of settings. I'm just curious your thoughts about that. But then also you said that feeling like people thought that that made you not a whole woman. And I also experienced that as somebody who did want to have children, but was struggling. So I'm just more curious about your thoughts.
Yeah, I think it is so personal, and it's not actually anybody else's business except you and the person you're trying to have a child with, or not. Um, because there are so many reasons, like you said, you needed to go through and fertility treatment, so you were there's women that have miscarriages. They're trying, but then they have miscarriages. It's not those that can have children easily, that's a blessing for them. But there's so many facets to having a child, and I don't think just because of your age it should be labeled that, and an open conversation question. Even in this day and age, we're very fortunate to have so many resources now. Whether you want to have children or not to have children, we're a lot lucky than generations before us. But I still think it's an extremely personal question, but it seems it's still on the table to openly ask at a dinner party, or, when you're on a social occasion. I think that's just crazy.
Actually, as we're having this conversation, my brain is going back to a conversation that the three of us just had as we were starting recording podcasts. In that, the three of us are therapists. We have a kind of a different discipline in our background, in our training, but we've all been trained systemically. And I'm just thinking about systemically how we live in a world where the broader culture still thinks us that it's okay to make comments and have opinions about a woman's body.
Exactly.
That's what's really landing for me right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
could observe. Yeah. And then but it's just
Yeah.
like game to like ask whatever kind of very personal invasive questions because you're not fitting the norm. Oh,
How many
okay.
how many men get asked that question?
It's
Yes.
Men are part of the equation too, normally.
Yeah. And again, that goes to the systemic piece that men have autonomy over their bodies and get to make decisions without the input of other people. And still, we live in a day and age where women are not granted that
Yeah.
right and respect.
100%. And leading on to what you were saying in your question about not feeling whole as a woman, and then you go through a stage when all your friends are having children, and that's a whole different ball game, because all of a sudden you're a little bit on the outside, like they've, and fair enough, they've got extremely busy lives, there's stuff going on, and then they gravitate obviously to other women that have got children the similar age, and then there's school and all the activities that come. So you end up sort of floating in this
The outskirts,
outskirts of this I don't know what to call it, but this friend zone. And you still have I've still got amazing friends that are, and I'm like an auntie to some of their kids, and I really appreciate that. But you are a little bit of an outsider when you don't have children and all your friends are. And you sort of feel a little bit left out because obviously they're having conversations that you can't really chime into. But I think the 30s was the hardest. Once you sort of hit 40, and again, it's you get to be told reminded how old you are.
Yeah.
Oh, now you're sort of in your 40s. Well, that ship sailed, sort of thing, though women are having babies in their 40s. But the questions drop off, and it's like, okay, so now I'm older. You're reminding me that I'm older. And now I'm in my 50s. They definitely don't say anything.
Yeah. Well, if I can ask, I'm really curious, and the past rule is in effect. So if this is too personal, then please, just say I don't care to answer. But was it? I mean, so I'm imagining that as you're going through your 20s and 30s, you've got friends. These life events are happening for them. I'm imagining that you're invited to weddings and baby showers and birthday parties and all of that stuff. And I'm just curious how that was for you. Like, was there ever a point that you're like, enough already? I don't want to do this. I don't know.
I suppose I've got quite a small friend circle. So the ones that were invited to with the things you mentioned, I was happy to be there, and I loved, I was happy for them. I wasn't, my choice not to have children was my choice. Their choice to have children was theirs, and I was happy for them and happy to support them in what they were doing and watch their children grow. And now some of those children are having children. That's even freakier. But no, I didn't feel it was too much, but I did sometimes feel a little bit not fitting in. That was probably more the feeling I would get, and that was more me than them.
And if I can ask, you said a small group of kind of inner circle friends. Were these friends asking you about having kids too, or were they a little bit more respectful or
Yeah, no, one of them was quite
persistent?
Yes. And and she was very close during the relationship that wasn't so flash, and she's like, just have a baby, it will all come together. And I'm like, no, it won't. And I still love her and all that, but that was her opinion, that was her view on how to fix things. And and that's what some people do, and it's how they see as making a whole family. And that, yeah, bringing two people together by having a child is going to somehow bond you even more. Yes, it does in some circumstances, which is great, but not not for me. So yes, yeah, there were some in that circle that did, yeah, put the pressure on.
Yeah.
I have a question for you. It's just striking me as somewhat, I don't know, discordant or ironic that we're having this conversation about being childless by choice and about how that doesn't make you any less of like a whole woman, a whole person. And yet the conversation is still very centered around kids and whether you had kids or not, right? Like there's just something about that that's like, oh, there's just it's just a little discordant. And I'm wondering if you could speak to what you really love about your life, completely separate from the kids question or not.
Yeah. I think my conscious choice not to have children gave me certain freedoms that my friends didn't have.
Yeah.
Like in my 40s, for my 40th birthday, I took myself off to Paris on a one-way ticket and spent 8 months backpacking. Now, I couldn't have done that with kids. It's given me freedom to make different choices, to not be in relationships I shouldn't be in, and to enjoy the children that are external, like my friends' children, my sister's children, enjoy them. And outside, I've brought children back into it. But yeah, it's definitely given me a freedom that I would not have had otherwise. And I love that. Even now, I can plan to go out to dinner. I mean, that's one thing I did find really hard is going to events. I love music and stuff. It's just finding someone to go with. But yeah, definitely having the freedom to have choices, I think, is one of the real positive things.
Well, I'm going to circle back to the children topic because that is the topic that you brought. So, given that this is still such a stigma, what message would you give to a woman in her 20s and her 30s who's
Follow your gut. Don't listen to this inner voice inside of you. What is that telling you? If it's telling you to go down this path and you really feel that's what you want, that's okay. If it's telling you to do something different, that's okay too. And that goes for marriage as well. Like, I've actually never been married. I've been in some long-term relationships and I've had to pay out like I was married, like in a divorce settlement, but without the ring. But you don't have to get married. You don't have to do a lot of these society norms if you don't want to. Do think about it. Like, unfortunately, with the having children situation, biologically, you do have to consider that if that is the path you want. But it's totally okay if it's not. And you're not less of a woman if that's what you choose. I mean, you've come into this world how you are, and celebrate that. I think that's my message, yeah.
Yeah, earlier you were saying that it started as a fear in your early 20s, right? I just don't want to get pregnant. I'll do anything I can do. And it sounds like at some point it switched to a conscious choice that you were able to look at that fear and say, is that the only reason I would be making this choice or not? And so I think that's part of your message, the power of your message as well, that we have to look at all those factors and then decide. We can sit with that and be uncomfortable looking at all these different factors or causes that are leading me here, and then I can pick. I get that power.
Yeah. And I think especially when you're in a relationship, if you're giving, it's really hard because I've had a few unhealthy relationships. And I think when one partner is giving a lot more or is a lot more invested than the other, You are looking for ways to fix things. And I think a lot of women think that by doing that, like I've touched on before, it does really sit on that, and maybe fix the relationship before bringing a third person into it. Um, Obviously, everybody's situation is totally different and more complex than what I've just said, but I would really, yes, really, really think about it. Don't think about what your mum's saying, what your sister's saying, what your auntie's saying, what your best friend's saying. Listen to yourself and really reflect for yourself.
Well, Gina, I think that you have 3 couples therapists who are in agreement with what you're saying.
And that's lovely to hear because I didn't actually know you were couple therapists. So that's,
All 3 of us.
well, I'm sure you've heard it all then, but like I've yeah, from experience of being in 3 really unhealthy relationships, and like I said, they were all long term. It was it's just you need to work on the relationship,
Mhm.
not something else.
Mhm.
I did want to touch on something, and it is sort of coming back to children, but it's sort of a bit funny in a way. But as you get older too, so like into your 40s or 50s, when perimenopause and
Yeah.
menopause hit, this is also a stage when a lot of women have oopsies,
Yeah.
pregnancies. And
Yeah.
that sort of freaked me out as well
Yeah.
because the doctors sort of just fob you off.
Yeah.
And you're going through a whole lot of different stages. So I went through probably a breezy bit there in the middle, and then coming out through perimenopause and now menopause. It's a weird thing to be thinking about getting pregnant during that time as well, and making again a conscious choice because that I did go through a stage. I hope you don't mind me sharing. I thought, I'd had a slip up with my partner, and I thought my period was late because it had been regular. I'm like, oh my God, I'm in my late 40s. I can't have a child now. I mean, that's just ridiculous. And then your brain starts spinning. And it was just, nature doing what nature does at our age. So, it's always this thing, that we have to think about as women. We have so many different layers of responsibility to think about, and sometimes it doesn't seem to end.
Yes. Yeah.
But it's all been, I'm don't regret the choice I made.
Mhm.
I'm happy for the opportunities it has given me. And to any of your listeners, I'd just say, like what we touched on, to really trust your gut, really listen to your intuition, and do what you want to do. Do you?
Anybody have last thoughts before we wrap up?
Again, feel that was a good mic drop.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
Yes.
I like it.
Yeah. Hey, Gina, what does your heart know to be true?
Oh, I think we really touched on it. Trust your gut and be you. No one can tell you, especially what to do with your body. It's 100% your choice. Really lean into that and don't let society, especially now, pressure you into doing anything that you don't want to do.
You, Erica, what is your heart know to be true?
Thinking through so many things, but my heart knows that even though sometimes I want to be open with people about what I'm going through or things that I'm thinking about, that there are only some people who are probably going to be able to sit with me in whatever my choices are and be there no matter what. So I guess to seek those people out, the real community, the real inner circle, that it doesn't kind of matter if they agree with what I'm doing or ultimately what I choose, that they're gonna still be there and hear all the spinning because that's part of the process.
Yeah, that's a good one.
What about you, Yolanda?
Yeah, such a great conversation. What's really on my mind is a version of what Gina said. But especially with as loud as the world is about things right now, and as opinionated. I mean, certainly through the years, people have been opinionated. It feels like people are even more opinionated than ever. It's really hard to get still and quiet with yourself to connect with your true
Mm.
wisdom and your own knowing. And that's so freaking brave. So kudos to you, Gina.
I love that.
How about you, Becca?
My heart knows that each of us is on our own journey. And what I'm really present with is how much we are in no position to judge or think that we know what someone else's story is, right? We talked to Gina here today. I'm remembering another episode that we recorded with someone who chose to have a child solo. And I also am aware how for many queer couples, this isn't even like the question is completely different. Some are childless by choice because they've decided not to have children. Some are childless because they literally cannot afford to have a child because it's so expensive. There's not like a thing of accidental pregnancy in the same way. And there's just like the equation around whether you choose to have a child is so different. And we really can't take any of this and like put it on someone else. And I think knowing that also means I don't have to take in anybody else's story and put it on me, right? Like I get to decide.
I love that. Gina, if people want to connect with you from across the pond, how can we find you? How can our listeners?
I'm on all the socials, so you can find me on Instagram at Wanderlust Solo Travel Coaching and on YouTube with Wanderlust Solo Women Travel Unscripted Podcast. They're probably the two main ones. I just want to say I've never actually shared this story really, like you said about being in a circle. It's not anything I'll get a little bit emotional. Openly shared in a conversation like this. I think what you said about surrounding yourself with people that you can have these discussions with, I think it's really important. And kudos to you ladies for sharing these conversations, because I think that's a real important thing to do, to let other people know they're not alone in whatever choice they make.
Well, thank you
or
for
choices.
Yeah. Thank you for your courage. It's inspiring, Gina.
And I'm honored that you chose to share your story.
Thanks for sharing with us.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.